What is going on, guys? Kenny here from 619 Guitars and Gear, and today we are going to dive into and check out the Esp Ltd KH-602 Kirk Hammett signature in purple sparkle. So, as always, let's get into it. Alright, well, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name's Kenny. I want to welcome you to my channel here. It's been a little while since we've done a review, so I'm pretty excited about this one. If this video helps you in any kind of way, maybe you've been thinking about buying one of these, or if you just get any useful information from this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, or maybe even consider hitting the subscribe button. That would be really cool. So let's dive in here. Before we get into the specs, I'll explain how I got this thing like I usually do. I did explain it in the revealing of this guitar. I did it wasn't really an unboxing, but I got two guitars on a trade for one guitar. And yeah, this is one of the two that I got. I'll put the link up here for that video. If you want to check that out first, you can always watch that and come back to this one. But it's real simple. Basically, I had a friend or a subscriber that actually became a good friend over the past couple of years. And he's from down south. I'm from up north on the East Coast. And he was coming up towards this way to visit family. And I had the BC Rich Mockingbird, the USA Custom Shop. And he is a BC Rich guru. And while I do like the Mockingbird, or did like the Mockingbird, it was kind of just one of those guitars that I bought to put in the collection just to have, even though I didn't. I mean, I'd have to say the Mockingbird's probably one of my favorite BC Rich guitars, but I just didn't really play it, and I kind of just had it just in case I came into a situation like this where I could trade it or maybe sell it because it was worth a pretty good amount of money. So that's what I did. He drove some extra hours to come up and do the trade. We hung out, had a good time. He's happy. I'm happy. And now we have two awesome guitars to do a review on. Obviously, the other guitar, it's an LTD EC 407 BFM. That will be a separate video. But today, we're concentrating on the KH-602. So let's go ahead and dive into the specs. So starting with the body here, like we always do, you have a obviously solid body. It's considered the Kirk Hammett signature body shape, which is obviously just a super strat. It has this beautiful, and I mean beautiful, purple sparkle finish on the body, the back of the neck, and the headstock. All gloss with polyurethane finish, which we are going to talk about a little later because it actually is one of my complaints about this guitar. Knowing LTD's quality from all my other LTDs, it's just something that's kind of shocking to me, but we'll talk about that a little later. You have a neck through design, three-piece maple neck, Macassar ebony fretboard, 25.5 inch scale. You have a 13.77 inch radius, which is a weird number. Actually had to check a couple different websites because it was kind of just a weird number to me. So I bet if you put a 14 inch radius gauge on it, it would probably be perfect. So I'm just going to say it's a 14 inch radius. You have 24 extra jumbo frets. It is considered an extra thin U-shape neck, which feels really good. It's definitely thin compared to some of my other LTDs. You have the skull and crossbone Kirk Hammett signature inlays, which just not a huge fan of. I mean, they'll have to do because they're not going anywhere, obviously, but just not really my thing. I know. Coming from the guy with a skull and two crossed swords on his shirt, whatever. I just don't like him for inlays. You have regular white side dots, dual action truss rod, and then for the nut width, it says it's 1.653 inches, and then obviously you have a locking nut. For the tuners, you have regular LTD, regular non-locking tuners, which seem to be of quality and on par with every other LTD tuner I have had. As far as the rest of the hardware, you have a Floyd Rose 1000 with the whammy bar. This thing is okay, kind of has a small block on it, which you'll see in the deep dive. And then this thing also has a trem lock on it, which you can push down, but you can't pull back. I want to go ahead and say that did not come on this guitar from the factory. I looked everywhere, and I haven't seen anything listed about it, so I'm going to say it was put on by someone previously who owned this. But hey, I'm going to keep it on there because I like, sometimes I like the trem locks. It kind of keeps everything a little bit more stable. You have 2 volumes, 1 master tone, a 3-way switch, and then something that's really cool is it has the EMG bone breakers. And this is my first time playing with these pickups. I'm a huge fan of the 8185, and I have to say, so far I'm really loving the bone breakers more than the 8185, which is pretty shocking for me, I have to say. Regular black strap buttons, and obviously you have your battery cavity, your electronics cavity, and then the cavity for the springs and claw. And yeah, I mean, pretty basic specs, but the Floyd 1000, the EMGs, I think kind of really just spruces this whole thing up. Let's go ahead and throw it on the bench. We'll pull some of the cavity covers off and dive in and see what's going on underneath them. All right, so we got all the back cavity covers off. This electronics cavity looks great. I'm not even going to get the meter out. This shielding paint looks fine. There's really no reason to, test it and make sure it's a good solid coat because it looks pretty decent. Your wiring, it looks like your generic wiring for a set of EMGs. You have 3 25K potentiometers, 1 neck volume, 1 bridge volume, and a tone. You have a 5-way switch. I don't know what brand any of this stuff is. There's not really any branding on it. But the switch seems pretty good quality, so no complaints there. Obviously, you have a ton of, slack on the wires, so everything's all zip tied up. But it's probably as neat as it could be from, the factory at least, without going in there and cutting stuff to length and, just neatening it up myself. It looks pretty good, so no complaints there. Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good. And for the battery box cavity, that looks good. You have a little plate clip there to hold the battery in place so it doesn't bounce around. And one thing that's cool is there is threaded inserts for the screws for the cover, so they're not using regular wood screws. It would be cool if they use that all around, but I feel like you see them more on battery boxes than anywhere else. So that looks perfectly fine to me. Overall, pretty happy with the way the electronic cavity looks. All right, now checking out the cavity for the trem springs and claw. Everything looks normal in here. You have a generic claw. I don't know if this came with 3 springs or 4. Someone might have added a spring. You have a small block on the Floyd 1000. Something I want to point out is this little trem lock. I don't know if it's like a homemade trem lock. It doesn't look like it is. You can probably buy that. But I do not think this comes on the guitar. I looked everywhere in the descriptions of the ads for this guitar, and it doesn't say anything about it. Plus, it's pretty crooked. And knowing LTD, I don't think they would have installed it like that. It does its job. It works great. When I make them, actually, I pretty much do the same thing. So, yeah, I mean, if it works, don't change it. But, yeah, I don't think that came on the guitar. But what's cool is it is adjustable. And where it is right now is perfect for where I like the trem blocked off at. You can push down on the whammy bar. You just can't pull up. So I don't really use the whammy bar too much when I play anyway. But, I mean, at least you can do, dive bombs or whatever you want to do. You just can't pull up. But it does make things a little bit more stable. But it's just something I thought I would point out. All right, well, obviously this guitar is not brand new from the factory, but I will show you how I have it set up. So we'll start with the neck relief. As far as relief, we'll get the straight edge here. I have a tiny bit. So you'll see there is a little bit of a gap there. It is pretty straight, but it's not 100% straight. I do like a little relief. I mean, it kind of depends on the guitar, but the way I have this set up right now, there is just a tad bit of relief. All right, let's check the action real quick. I have no capo on the first fret. Some people use a capo, some people don't. I usually do not use a capo. So we'll start with millimeters on the 12th fret. Usually my go-to is 1.50. With this, I was able to get it down a little lower, so we're pretty close to 1.25. I'd say 1.30. And then as we move on to the high E, it gradually drops to 1.25. With this guitar, I was able to go lower than normal just because the frets are super level. There's not really any buzzing at all. And yeah, everything is great. So as far as regular inches, we're at pretty much 0.06, between 0.05 and 0.06. And then we're going to gradually drop down to 0.05. So I have the action set by my standards pretty low. Like I said, I usually am around 1.50. So for me, this is lower than normal. All right, let's take some quick neck measurements. We'll do the first fret and the 19th fret. Starting at the first fret in millimeters, we are at 43.54, which is pretty normal. And then at the 19th fret here, .04. So I'd say some pretty normal measurements. Most of my LTDs are in that 44 to 45, 43 to 45 millimeter range at the first fret, and around 54 to 57 at in the 19th, 20th fret area. So not too bad. All right, let's go ahead and do a little bit of a sound demo. We'll do distortion and clean. I am tuned to drop C, and we're plugged into the interface. We are actually using the updated version of the Fortin Nameless from Neural DSP. It is the Fortin Nameless X, I believe. And I made an IR using the Get Good Drums studio cabs. It is the Zilla edition, and in my opinion, it sounds really, really good. So let's do distortion first, starting on the bridge pickup. right, so we went over specs. We did a deep dive. We went and did a sound demo. We went over pretty much everything on this guitar. Now, I said I wanted to talk about a complaint I had about the polyurethane gloss finish on this guitar. And can I really call it a complaint? No, because as a painter, I kind of understand, and I think I know what's going on here. So let me kind of give you my theory here. I've been playing LTDs since I started playing guitar, pretty much 2004. My first guitar was a LTD H250, and 3 out of my 6 LTDs are gloss finishes, and they're pretty much perfect. Level sanded, polish sanded, and buffed to perfection from the factory. And that's what I'm used to. On this guitar, it definitely has some flaws, but I do have a theory. So let me explain here. You have this really awesome heavy purple flake on this guitar, and with flakes that are this big, I want to say probably flakes that are this big and maybe a little bit bigger usually would come out of a special gun that's made for, you know, shooting metal flake, or you just have to use a really big tip in your spray gun. And what happens is these flakes kind of lay on each other, they overlap and kind of stack up, and you kind of get a bunch of peaks and valleys. So when it comes to clear coating, you really got to, you kind of got to put a lot of clear coat on, a lot of coats, and, you know, even level sand in between coats. Now, me, when I have all the time in the world and I'm working on a project like that, I'm going to take my time and do that. This being a production model guitar, obviously they're going to do what they have to do and get it out and get it going, you know. So I kind of understand. So what I think is happening is basically they probably did the metal flake, they did their, you know, clear coat, they did their level sanding and polish sanding and buffing, and it probably wasn't 100% fully cured. And obviously over time it cures and the paint shrinks, so you're just going to see more of those imperfections. And like I said, unless you really sit there in between coats when it comes to this heavy flake, it's just it's not hard. You definitely can achieve the result of having a perfectly glass smooth finish, but unless you really take your time on it, which they're not going to do out of like a high volume production factory, it's not going to be absolutely perfect. Now, does it make me not like the guitar or anything? No, absolutely not. I think this is an awesome guitar. It's just something I want to point out, and it's just something more that I'm shocked at, I should say. And it's really not noticeable unless you look at it at, you know, certain angles or certain glares. You can even see some scratch, you know, sanding marks and stuff like that. If you look or go back to the clip of us checking out the electronics cavity, kind of look at the paint in the frame all around. You'll kind of see what I'm talking about. You can definitely see some imperfections in that clip, and you'll kind of just get an idea of exactly what I'm talking about. When I did my Jake Bowen signature Ibanez in that really heavy flake gold, which is basically the same size flake that's on this, I ran into the same problem. But obviously, like I said, I had all the time in the world to sit there and put a bunch of coats on and sand in between coats and everything else, and just really take my time in it. And with a, you know, production guitar from a factory, they're not gonna take all the time in the world to do that. So that's just my theory on what's going on here. I could be wrong. You might have a different opinion, but I figured I would just put it out there. Other than that, this guitar is absolutely awesome. I love pretty much everything about it. Not a huge fan of the skull and crossbones, but that's just personal preference. I don't want to put stickers or anything on it because it kind of changes the fact that it's a signature Kirk Hammett guitar. And yeah, I really dig the bone breakers. I think they are definitely a step above the 8185. They're just kind of thicker, have a thicker, fuller characteristic, I should say. And for the first time playing them, I am really digging them. But great guitar overall. Super happy I got it. And yeah, that's about it for this video. Stay tuned. The next video will be the LTD EC407 BFM, which is an absolute monster of a guitar. It's a 7-string baritone, and that thing is so sick. So stay tuned for that in the near future. But until then, guys, stay safe, be a good person, and we will see you in the next one.